Vice President Joe Biden, thank you so much for being a guest on our show at Home Edition. I can see you're at home or somewhere. Where are you right now?
I'm in Wilmington, Delaware, in my recreation room at home. They set up a makeshift studio here. I'm just getting used to what you're very used to.
Wow. What is it like campaigning during this time right now? Like a lot of virtual interviews?
Well, a whole lot of virtual interviews, and obviously, I'm keeping to the instructions. I'm not going out of the house. I'm going. I can walk around the property, but I'm not going out. I've been here. I've been, keeping my distance from folks when they come in, and everybody walks in. They put on rubber gloves and a mask, and the Secret Service. So
Wow.
Anyway,
what is the day in the life? I mean, when do you start interviews?
Well, I usually start interviews. I start off every day with about an hour to an hour and a half with the medical docs that I have on my team, giving me on the phone about the status of the coronavirus here and around the world. And then I do an economic brief with the economists that work with me. And then from that point on, I get up at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I work out upstairs to keep me a little bit sane. And but then I start the day, and I've been doing a lot of live stream things that I'm getting used to, but it amazes me that everybody is tuning in to so many different ways to find out what's going on.
It's been real creative.
Yeah, has been interesting.
What is your if you're talking to all these experts, what is your outlook on this whole pandemic?
Well, I guess in a nutshell, Jimmy, the president waited too long to start taking it seriously. All the way back in January, I went on in major newspapers saying that we got to get moving. This is a real problem. We know it's coming, and we know we got to get better at we got to provide tests. We got to be getting out and making sure people understand what's about to come. But it's been a lot of lag time. Remember the president saying this is going to end shortly and it's going to be like a miracle, et cetera. That was in spite of everything he was being told by the medical experts and the scientists who were talking to him and to us and to everyone, quite frankly. But there's still, we're in tough shape right now. This virus is going to hit in a real big way in the next several weeks to month and a half. But there's things we could do now, Jimmy, to make it a lot less consequential into the summer and beyond. We still don't have enough tests out there. We still don't have our first responders aren't having the protection they need. Doctors don't have the protection they need. And every single day on your network and other networks, they're showing, and I'm getting briefed on, the number of doctors that are and nurses and first responders who are being infected by the coronavirus and in turn infecting other people. So it's just, we just have to move much, much more rapidly, much more quickly.
Can we use any of the information that we know from China or Italy or anything to help us?
Yes, we can. For example, we know that if you have social distancing early on and you keep it moving, that in fact it reduces and flattens that curve and people get faster than before. President hadn't done that. Tests are critically important. The president talked about having 4 million tests available. We're nowhere near that. The president talked about being in a position where we're going to have every Walmart parking lot and Walgreens, et cetera. We were going to have drive-through testing, et cetera. Well, there's now, after he announced that a couple of weeks ago, 5 in America. 5 are open. It just is, it really, there's a sense of urgency that doesn't seem only until yesterday at his press conference did the president start to grasp the reality of what he's facing in terms of the number of potential deaths, the number of people who are going to contract the virus. Thank God the majority still go on to live and get through it. But we got a lot to do. We're not getting it done.
Well, New York, where I am, and Delaware, where you are, we have strict stay-at-home orders.
Yep.
Why is there not a nationwide stay-at-home order?
Well, look, I think we're in a position where I think every state is going to have to be moving in that direction. And it demonstrates that it does bend that curve a little bit. It does increase the prospects that fewer people are going to catch the virus. And the answer is, I don't fully know. We've been leaving it to the governors. Thank God the governors have been moving. Your governor of New York's done one hell of a job. I think he's sort of the gold standard. Yeah. But governors, Republican governors in Ohio, for example, or have moved. Mike DeWine has moved. You have your Republican governor of Massachusetts is moving. And they constantly are questioning and actually saying, Mr. President, what you just said isn't the case. It's not happening that way. Let's get it straight. Look, the American people can take anything. You got to tell them the truth there. You got to level with them. You got to tell them what's expected of them and what you're expected to do. This is the President of the United States. Back a while ago, Jimmy, I said he should invoke what this National Defense Act that's out there, this Defense Production Act is called. And it makes the president, gives him the authority to go to industries and say, look, we don't have enough ventilators, like finally going on with General Motors now. Yeah. You're now going to make ventilators. Why aren't we doing that with masks? Why aren't we doing that with gowns? Why aren't we doing that? You have nurses putting on garbage bags to try to protect themselves, et cetera. We need more tests. We need more protection for our first responders and doctors and nurses, and we need to move quickly to get that done. He has the power to do it under the act that I just referenced to. It allows him to say, you're going to do and you're going to make these things, and this is what you're going to do now. Get it done.
How is this pandemic affecting the election? Do you think voters will be more mailing in votes?
I think so. You're already seeing that in states that are talking about still maintaining their primaries. I think there's going to have to be a really hard look at increasing the prospects in the secretaries of state in each of the states to control the ballots, that you in fact make it available and work on mail-in votes. But there are also going to be places where you're still going to be able to have direct voting if people keep their distance and they wash down the machines, letting one person in at a time, et cetera. So it's going to depend on what kind of action is taken between now and the middle of the summer to change this curve as to what's going to happen going into the fall. For example, I doubt whether the Democratic Convention is going to be able to be held in mid-July, early July. I think it's going to have to move into August. And even then, the Republican and Democratic Convention, we just have to be prepared for the alternative. And the alternative, we don't know what it's going to be unless we have a better sense of whether this curve is going to move down or up.
I know you've been doing a lot of virtual town halls and things like that and talking. It's almost like bringing back the old fireside chats.
Yeah.
The last time I believe I saw you on stage was at the Time 100. You were being honored as one of the Time 100, and you were so eloquent and beautifully spoken. You talked. I want to say you quoted, is it Yeats? Or there's a poet, or
it could have been Yeats, or it could have been Seamus Heaney. It could have been a number of Irish poets. I used to be a stutterer, and the way I overcame as a kid stuttering, I'd read a lot of Irish poetry and try to memorize it to get a cadence to what I was doing.
There's mind blowing. I think I was sitting at your table with your lovely wife, and Justin Timberlake was there, and you were performing. We looked at each other, Justin and I were like, wow, it was just really, it was mind-blowing. It was really.
I find a lot of solace in poetry. There's a great poem that written by Seamus Heaney, who recently passed away, an Irish poet. It's called The Curatorian. He said, history teaches us not to hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, that longed for tidal wave of justice rises up and hope and history rhyme. That's what I think we should be looking at. We should be able to come out of this in a way like we always do as Americans. We are the only country I'm aware of that goes into things of overwhelming difficulty. We overcome them and we come out stronger. And I think that's what we have to focus. Look at what the American people are doing, Jimmy. They're incredible. Instead of making fun of either, like the president's going after governors he doesn't like and that kind of thing, what are they doing? They're going around their neighborhoods. Look. There's a friend of mine used to work with me down in South Carolina. He has a daughter in grade school. He sent me a video of the school teacher, the kindergarten teacher, called all the kids in her class and said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ride by your house at such and such a time. You sit out in the driveway in your tricycle and wave to me. I miss you, want to see you. Take her 3 hours to do it. I mean, people are doing things like my wife is working on. We had a cancer initiative we worked on. And the board of that initiative, the Biden Cancer Initiative, called Jill, a board member, and said, look, a lot of people are shut in. They're frightened. They're older. They have cancer. They need chemotherapy. They're afraid to leave. Can we set up a program where we call into them? We write them notes. I mean, there's all kinds of things people are doing.
We showed a video earlier. Our announcer, Steve Higgins, his daughter, Anna Higgins, is a nurse in Mount Sinai in Manhattan. And she videotaped her walking to work. And everyone's out their windows cheering her on, going, yeah, we got this.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You know, I have a good friend whose mom was in a nursing home. She can't go see her. You know what she does? She sits out in a chair outside the window of the nursing home and just puts her hand up and just touches her hand through the glass. You know, I mean, these things make so much difference. I try to make sure I call a couple people every day that are shut in. I get calls from people. Would you call my mom? Would you call my uncle? Would you call? I mean, it's just people, you know. You know, when I started to run for office this time around, I said, we got to restore the soul of America. You're seeing the soul of America now. The American people, they're incredible, absolutely incredible what they're doing. I watched on one of the shows this morning between my phone calls where a doctor said how frightened he was to go into the operating room because so many people had the virus, and but he said, I watched these firemen and they rush into the fires, and I thought, well, I can screw up the courage to do it, but I got to tell you, I'm afraid. That's real courage. Real courage is doing something that you're afraid to do and you do it anyway. That's what so many people are doing. Yeah. We're going to get through this.
We are, right?
We are.
How are your grandkids? Are you talking to them?
Yeah, I talk to them every single day. I've been doing that forever, though. There's a deal we have. I have 5 grandchildren, and every single day I either talk to them or we text. But I have 2 of them. My deceased son, Bo's children live about 0.8 of a mile as a crow flies from where we are. And they can walk through neighborhoods and across a park area, and they come out in the back side of the house. We're not allowed to hug them and kiss them, but they stand out in the yard. We sit in the porch and we tell stories and we talk, find out what's going on in their day. And so, you know, it's you know, I got family scattered around like I suspect everybody does.
Well, I'm so happy that I got a chance to talk to you, and you really lifted my spirits and a lot of people that are watching. So I thank you.
Jimmy, you lift people's spirits every day. You do it every single day. And you have a woman coming on, I'm told, that's going to be on your show. Yeah. Tell her I love her because I know she loves me. We're good friends, okay. All kidding aside. And my favorite song of hers is Till It Happens to You. Look at the lives she's changed. Really? Look at the lives that she's changed. She really has. So, yeah. you know, and especially you, every night getting on that television, you make people laugh, man. And that's what people have to do. Yeah. They have to look inside. I appreciate you
so much. Thank you so much. I'll tell Gaga you said hello.
Please do.
Thank you so much again for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's to your wife.
Thank you.
On and on and on. I said, and it's on and on and on.